Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Back to the Dugout on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Got another weekend of baseball in the books, and we got to recap it here. As always, I'm your host, Toby Schulman. We got a lot to talk about today when it comes to the postseason contenders, World Series contenders, wild card contenders. Lots going on. A lot's been going on, especially this weekend. A lot of things got shaken up. We kind of talked about last week how there really wasn't too much of a, change in the standings. I mean, it's been kind of like a up and down season for a lot of teams, especially in the Central divisions, AL Central, especially teams like the Twins, the Royals have moved kind of up and down the entire season. Now we're starting to see them make even more kind of bigger pushes towards the top of the division, despite some struggles recently. But we'll talk about all of that coming up. Some other teams are starting to emerge as possible postseason contenders, which is pretty cool because this has been such a chaotic season already. And the fact that we have teams like the Tigers and the Red Sox even pretty close to a postseason push, that's pretty cool in my opinion. We'll talk about all of that coming up here in the weekend roundup. But pretty much for this season going forward with the weekend roundup, the main thing I want to do with it is kind of just headline the news from the teams that are actually contending for postseason spots or World Series or, like I said, a wild card spot. I feel like that stuff is way more pressing than talking about the Marlins who aren't winning, who are eliminated, or the White Sox who've just been historically bad. I feel like I talk about it every single week on this show, how often I seem to talk about the White Sox for how bad they are. That's something I personally want to aim to stop doing because I feel like I don't talk enough about the actual stuff that's more important. So we're getting right into the actual gritty stuff here, the stuff that matters, the postseason teams, the teams that are going to be playing a month from now and competing for that World Series trophy. So let's just talk about the headlines throughout the entire league this weekend. The Dodgers, they've won 7 of their last 10. So not just a weekend stretch for the Dodgers, but they've been just on fire recently. They now command a 6-game lead over the NL West. And that's over the San Diego Padres and Arizona Diamondbacks. Pretty much those are the only 2 teams that could actually make a possible run for that division championship. Yet they're obviously not going to be able to win that division title if the Dodgers are on this absolute red hot streak, which they've been doing for really not just the last week but I mean, even before that. I mean, they've just been so good since the All-Star break. Despite when, the division became a little bit close there, I think they really just reset and guys stepped up. They made great moves at the deadline, and I think they ended up making their team a lot better and addressed a lot of needs that they needed to, and that's why they're doing so well now. But they've got huge series wins over the Guardians, the Diamondbacks, the Orioles. They played really good teams recently, and they've actually done really well over them, and that just makes me more confident about them moving forward. I don't know how they'll perform in the postseason, but they perform well against these teams now, and especially teams like the Diamondbacks, who they're almost certainly going to run into again. It's going to need to come out and be similar to what they did in the regular season, because if they come out and drop a dud in the postseason again, I don't know, because this Dodgers team seems the most legit Dodgers team that we've ever seen from them, at least in the more recent years with the Dodgers super teams that have been attempted to be formed. And while we're kind of in this Dodgers hot streak, it's only right that we take a look at Shohei Ohtani's 50-50 push. We talked about it last week a little bit, how he failed to do that at Angel Stadium, or at least cross the 45-45 mark. He was at like the 99 home run mark at Angel Stadium, and unfortunately couldn't cross that 100 home run threshold. But right now he's sitting at 46 home runs and 46 stolen bases. He's got plenty of time remaining, one would think, to reach this mark. But the season's going to go fast, and these last few remaining series are going to go by very, very quick. These last handful of 3-game stretches or 1 4-game stretch for some teams, it's going to go by quick. And if he catches fire, I think he could easily hit it. If he doesn't, if he goes a little bit cold, I think he could very easily end up with only 48 home runs and 50-something stolen bases. I think he'll cross that 50 stolen base mark pretty easily. And I don't think that was really ever something anyone expected to hear when thinking Shohei Ohtani, that stolen bases were more of a guarantee than home runs. But I think that's kind of just where we're at with Ohtani's game right now. I would have thought he would have been at least at 48 by now, but home runs are obviously harder to attain than those stolen bases sometimes. he's been good lately, but his numbers have been a bit lower than some other players on the Dodgers, especially over the last 7 days. Slash line over the last 7 days was a 292 batting average, 370 on base, and then a 625 slug. So still really good numbers. But obviously that batting average is pretty low for Shohei's standards, I guess, and then a 995 OPS as well. So he's been unbelievable lately, and if he could just put up those numbers, I think for the remainder of the season, which I think we all can agree on, is very capable of reaching that. I think he will reach that 50-50 clip pretty easily, and we'll see if he can get over that mark even and with like 51 or 52 home runs, or if he could just continue to push what he is able to do on the field, because it's really just it's so much fun to watch, and it's just must watch baseball right now across the entire league. And that's what I think is really cool about it. But not only Shohei on the Dodgers is just performing so well, it's a lot of other bats, and that's what makes them so scary. Mookie Betts, he's just been on a tear the last 7 days as well. 409 average, 480 on base, and 909 slug, and then 1389 OPS. 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, and 3 doubles for Mookie Betts on that 7-day stretch. He's been amazing since returning from injury. I think that's undoubtedly the boost that the Dodgers needed there. Personally, very happy to see him healthy and back to playing good baseball, because when he does, the game's that much more fun to watch. But it's going to be that much more of a pain for National League and that one American League team that could have the bad fate of going up against the Dodgers in the World Series if they seem to make it there. He's going to be a really tough out as always, and he's really shown what he's going to be doing. I think in the postseason, he's putting up incredible numbers right now. And if you're a betting man, I mean, I would tail Mookie Betts at the plate right now most games. I mean, he's just been incredible. Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, they've also been putting up great production as well. Both of them hitting over 300 over the last week. And on the pitching side of things, it's kind of been a struggle this year, as a lot of people know, with the injuries coming out of the Dodgers rotation and even in the bullpen as well. But Jack Flaherty, the move that they made from Detroit, he threw 13.2 or 13.0 innings pitched. This week, 9 hits, 1 earned run in 2 games start across those 13 innings. Just incredible. I mean, he's been honestly just really, really good since the Dodgers acquired him. One of the best additions of this entire trade deadline. 2.61 ERA and a 1.52 ERA plus. So he's been well above league average since being on the Dodgers, and a 10.2 K per 9 rate on top of all of that. So he's been incredible. Definitely just kind of the icing on the cake for the Dodgers, who always seem to make these great moves at the deadline, and they really needed some rotational help, and they got it with Jack Flaherty. He's going to be great in the postseason, and I think that's a just huge and crucial piece to this Dodgers team. To see him performing this well is pivotal to their success, really. But moving across the country, we go to the Yankees, who got a series win at Wrigley Field this weekend, which gives them now almost at 3.5. I wish it's only a half game lead over the division, as Baltimore dropped the series against Tampa Bay. And I mean, I say it every single week. It just seems like this is just such an up and down division. It's going to end with the team being half a game up of one another. I feel like it just seems like when one team wins, the other just loses, and nobody can really take advantage of it. It's just we're going to trade being half game up, and hopefully we're just in that place when the season ends, I feel like, is what the Yankees are banking on right now. But the Yankees saw a bit of internal changes this weekend. Clark Schmidt returned to the rotation, which is a huge sigh of relief for a lot of Yankee fans who just really saw that this rotation needed a new arm in it immediately, a little bit of a breath of fresh air, maybe just something to reignite it. And Clark Schmidt looked great in his first start back. But that meant that a pitcher got moved to the bullpen, and unfortunately for Nestor Cortez's sake, it ended up being him. He got the, I guess, boot to the bullpen, even though, in my opinion, that was the best kind of decision to make for the Yankees. I think that Nestor really, while he's shown obviously that he can be a solid starter, I feel like he's better out of the bullpen with just how mechanically he pitches. But Nestor had some choice words to say about just being moved to the bullpen in general. He's quoted saying, "Obviously, I was upset. I felt like I've been amongst all the starters the workhorse here. And once Cole went down, they picked me to be the opening day starter, not necessarily the number one, but the opening day starter. I had to switch my routine there." So obviously he's going to be upset. I personally don't think anything he said there was necessarily wrong. I think for a guy who started the opening day game to then be moved to the bullpen, it's definitely a kick. I feel like it's definitely a kick to them. But I feel like he's just a pitcher who's a team player. He loves playing for the Yankees. I mean, we saw that tweet he put out. I forget when it was, if it was like around the All-Star break or if it was a little bit when they were slumping or a little bit before that. I'm not sure, but um, he obviously loves playing for the Yankees, and just having obviously the fans not really on his side there isn't good for him. But he was great out of the bullpen. Him and Clark Schmidt in that one game against the Cubs just shut down the lineup and really just showed that two of them in one game could be really successful down the road. I personally thought that was a cool thing to see as a Yankee fan. That was something new and something kind of experimental that I'm glad they at least tried. It wasn't something I thought they would go down the road of doing. So I'm very, very happy that at least uh, they're letting these kind of new ideas go, because seeing Cortez go 4.1 innings pitched after Clark goes 4 innings as well, and get the win for Clark in his first game back, for Cortez to come in, back him up, and get that win for him is really good. And I think just, maybe that quote was taken a little bit too harshly by Yankees fans. I mean, obviously he's going to be upset. He threw like 2 7-inning outings pretty recently in late August, so I can see why he was probably pretty surprised about the move. But you're realistically not putting Luis Gil in the closer role. You're not moving, I don't think, anybody else into the bullpen. So I think this was really just the ultimate best decision. He could still be a workhorse out of the bullpen, so I don't really see an issue there. And I think Cortez will start to embrace that role and be a great relief pitcher in the middle of relief there for the Yankees. Hopefully, they can just DFA Meza and get on with their lives. But it should be. Sorry, a pretty good move for the Yankees there. It proved to be a good move as they took that series this weekend. Uh, a very down week, I'd say, offensively for the New York Yankees, hitting 233 with a 636 OPS. But Gleyber Torres, he hit 375 this week, and he's really the only solid hitter that showed up. So that's definitely a benefit there. Aaron Judge, he hasn't hit a home run, I believe, since he was on Paw Patrol. So that's got to change soon. They've got a pivotal series against the Royals to come up, who uh, is the team of conversation that I'm about to transition to right now. The Royals, they had a really good weekend, and they needed it after losing about 7 games in a row. They avoided a sweep from Cleveland, and they then went on to sweep the Minnesota Twins. They're only now 2.5 games back of the AL Central, and Minnesota is now 5 games back. So a huge series win there, a huge series sweep. To be able to just kind of sink Minnesota in the division like that was absolutely huge. And then not only that, to get some space from them in the wild card, they really took advantage of that the very best they could. And I think when looking back on this Royals series, that's going to be looked at as just that season-changing series, that time where they kind of just flipped a switch and they knew that this was either going to sink them or this was going to be ultimately what took them over the top, over the Twins, and got them over the hump to the postseason instead of them. I think that was you couldn't have asked for a better weekend if you were a Royals fan. And now, you just have to hope that it doesn't end here with the series against the Yankees. But Minnesota, they've got LA coming up. There they go, and they play the Angels, and Cleveland's got Chicago, where they will play the White Sox. So it's not like these teams in the division with them that are in the same place have harder competition to play right now. So if you're the Royals, you really got to go out there and win today. The pitching, we talked about how it struggled of late, but Cole Reagan's in that game one of the series this weekend against Minnesota, tossed 6 scoreless innings. They came out with the game one win there, obviously. And then in game two, Bobby Witt Jr., he came up with a clutch go-ahead single, and the Royals would end up taking that game two as well to take the series there. They would get past Bailey Ober and Yohan Duran. So that's a hard group of pitchers to overcome there on that Minnesota Twins team. So a great game two win, especially after taking that first game there, to be able to seal that series win there against 2 solid pitchers is great for Kansas City. And then Michael Wacha, he only gave up 4 hits across 7 scoreless innings, and the Royals took a 2-0 win to earn the series sweep. So the Royals are in a really good spot right now. Unfortunately, they're kind of in another spot where if they don't keep this going, they could sink themselves right back where they were before. I personally think that could really happen. I'm not going to lie. That might be the Yankee fan bias getting to me, but ultimately, uh, I just think this Royals team is a little too up and down right now. We saw that they, again, just lost 7 in a row and now just won, I believe, 4, maybe I think it's 5, maybe 4. But a little too streaky, kind of like the rest of the AL Central has been. Hopefully, for their sake, the Twins and the Guardians drop a couple easy games because they're not going to really shy away, I feel like. So it's going to be tough for them. And, it's not always easy to make a wild card spot or earn a wild card spot when you have a team breathing down your back. There is multiple teams in this case breathing down Kansas City's back, and that just makes your case even harder if you are making a postseason push. Uh, because Detroit is 8.5 games back of the division, so you may not think that they're really, in the conversation for anything there, but they're only 3.5 games back of the AL wild card. So they took a series win over the A's this weekend, which obviously is huge for them. And they have a series versus Colorado coming up. And then I took a look at their schedule to see what it was like following that Colorado series, because realistically, you can sweep Colorado and get within like maybe half a game of this, 1.5 games of it, 2.5 games. You could get pretty close to this wild card if you sweep Colorado coming up. So I looked at the schedule afterwards, and it said that they play Baltimore twice, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, and the Chicago White Sox. Those were the ones that stood out to me the most. I believe that's all of their remaining series for this year. But those Tampa Bay games, those Chicago White Sox games are going to be crucial to finish off the season because they could go on a skid from the Baltimore, Kansas City, Baltimore stretch of games there. If they take 2 of those 9 games, it's not going to look good. It's not going to look good. I believe those are all 3-game sets. So if they don't win a majority of those games, it's not going to look good for their chances. And if that happens, they're going to have to take, at least they're going to have to sweep both of those series, Tampa Bay and the Chicago White Sox series. They're going to have to sweep both of those if they want a chance at making the postseason, if those Orioles and Kansas City games don't go their way. But it's been really fun watching them play lately. If they can just manage to get this Colorado sweep, I think we'll start to talk about the Tigers here in a more serious regard. But I just don't know if the offense is really all the way there yet. We'll just have to see. I really like some of the guys that they got. I like watching Torkelson come back up and start to figure it out a little bit. Obviously, Riley Green's fun to watch. Trey Sweeney's kind of figuring some stuff out up there. Parker Meadows and Matt Vierling are fun as well. So it's going to be a fun Tigers team, I feel like, to watch for the upcoming future. And obviously, Tariq Skubal is just on a whole different planet, and we'll talk about him later on in the show. But Detroit, a lot of fun to watch right now. Arguably the hottest team in baseball, probably the hottest team right now in the American League, because the National League has a team that's just been on an absolute tear. But little bit of AL West news, and then we'll get into the last bit of NL news before we break into the kind of middle of the show, middle of the hour break here. But the Seattle Mariners, we talked about how their season was kind of slipping away last episode. They were, I believe, 6 games back, 6.5 games back there, and they just slightly cut this deficit. I don't want to say they cut the deficit. They slightly cut the deficit of the division, and they now sit tied with the Tigers for the wild card at 3.5 games back. So they're kind of in a similar position as the Tigers. I mean, I don't necessarily want to say role because I think the Mariners' offense is better, but the series win versus the Cardinals, they finally took a series against a team that was worse than them. Bryce Miller went a strong 6 innings pitch in that Game 1 win, and then in the Game 3 rubber match that they needed to win, the offense went off for 10 runs. So when that happens, that's a great sight to see. Obviously, the Cardinals aren't the best team in the games back of the NL Central, I believe, unless I'm wrong about that, and they sank even further down in the division. But I'm pretty sure that's where we're at right now. We'll recap the division standings before the end of the episode, as always. But the Mariners getting a much needed series win against the Cardinals. They cut the deficit of the division slightly. While that's not going to be one, obviously the wild card, they want to cut that a little bit more as well. So 3.5 games is not bad. Hopefully that tough stretch of the Tigers' schedule can kind of take them out of it. I kind of talked about the Red Sox. I don't really think they're a too serious threat in the wild card, so I think the Mariners really just have to not beat themselves here and just have to really just try to win as many games as they possibly can moving forward. They really can't drop any games against easy teams. But moving down to the rest of the National League news, that's pretty much just coming out of the NL East at this point. The Central's not really being won anymore, and we already touched on the NL West. So, the Brewers got the NL Central locked down, so we don't have to talk about that. But the Mets and the Braves are now tied in the division and in the wild card. I believe they're 7 games back of the Phillies now. So this is getting really interesting. I don't want to get my hopes up for the Mets necessarily because, I personally want to see them in the playoffs, but I don't want any Mets fans to come at me saying that I jinxed them. So a series win against Cincinnati for the Mets and a series win against Toronto for Atlanta. These two teams are going to go ahead and pretty much just trade opponents that they had over the weekend, and they're going to see how they fare against each other now. So we talked about, obviously, the Mets just beat Cincinnati, so obviously Cincinnati's going to go to Atlanta and play the Braves, and then Toronto, they're going to be playing the Mets. So that'll be interesting to see if the two teams are in the same spot after those two series, or if the Mets can actually break away, or if the Braves can put the Mets back in their place. We'll see what happens there. But the Braves have a tricky end of their schedule coming up with series against the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Royals coming up. So it's not easy by any means, but the Mets is also not any easier. They've got series coming up against Philadelphia, Atlanta, and then Milwaukee as well. And then 7 games are going to be against Philly. Obviously mentioned Philly, 7 games against the Philly, against the Red October Philadelphia Phillies, who, obviously won't be October yet, but they're going to be gearing up for Red October and getting ready there, and they're probably going to be in postseason form. So the Mets really got to be at the top of their game there if they want to make a push for this wild card. But that's pretty much all the news coming out of the NL East, and in the rest of the NL, the Marlins and the Rockies are now eliminated from postseason contention. So that's pretty much it. Like that, you don't really need that news, but it's, I guess, useful. That's why I kind of went the direction of just doing the teams that actually are going to be like playing games in October, because who really cares about the Rockies and Marlins being eliminated? Sorry if you're a fan of either of those teams. Rough go at it this year. Maybe it'll be better next year, but we got to take most of the time to talk about these teams that are actually going to be winning some games. But in segment 2, coming up, we're going to be talking about the awards coming up, the AL MVP, NL MVP, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, all that good stuff. I'm going to give you your series of the week as well. And then in the third kind of part of the show, be giving you some picks here for the small slate of games that we've got today. No NFL picks. Honestly, I really just did not do good on the NFL this weekend. I don't think a lot of people did. I think the spreads were like 8 and 7 this week. So yeah, really tough go at it if you were betting NFL. College, I think, was a lot more fun to watch this weekend. But we're going to take a quick break here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. When we come back, we'll talk more about awards and even more about some of the games today and give you guys some picks for the small slate. Like I said, not a lot of games, but there are some good games. And we'll also give you your series of the week to kind of watch and preview that. But we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back. We are back from our middle of the hour break for the bottom half of the hour here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. I'm Toby Shulman, your host here on Back to the Dugout. Welcome back, everybody, to another Monday afternoon edition of the show. Going to talk about the series of the week real quick before we get into our award talk here in the second segment of the show, and then we're going to break into obviously our picks for the September 9th slate here. But for the series of the week today, I feel like I've been just gravitating towards this team a lot lately, but I feel like that's only right because of just how entertaining the games have been and how uh, impactful they actually are going to have on postseason implications. And that is the Royals going into Yankee Stadium tonight to take on the New York Yankees. And each of these games are going to be 7:05 starts. Great pitching matchups for each of these, in my opinion. You got Carlos Rodon, and then you've got Brady Singer today. And, while that's not the flashiest, those are both great middle of the rotation pitchers who are having solid seasons, who I think are going to go out there and pitch really well tonight. And then you've got Marcus Stroman and Seth Lugo. Seth Lugo having an incredible year. Whether or not he can come to a big stage like Yankee Stadium and get it done, we'll see if he can do that against Marcus Stroman, who looks to kind of just end the season on a high note, I guess is the best thing I could say. He's been kind of really up and down since the post All-Star break, but he's still, I think, as solid as a lot of other pitchers in the league. He has the intensity to get it done out there, and I think when it gets down to it in these late September games, these mid September games, he's going to really turn it up to another level, hopefully. And then that last game on September 11th is going to be on Prime Video, and that is Luis Gil versus Cole Reagans. I think that's going to be a great start. Reagans coming off of a really solid start his last time out, and then Luis Gil obviously just continues to take these innings and just be such a workhorse for this team. When you talk about workhorse of the Yankees, I don't really know if I think of Cortez. I more honestly think of Luis Gil this season, but Nestor could have way more innings. I could be wrong. That's just kind of how my mind's working right now. But that's my series of the week. I think we've got three just great pitching matchups with this Yankees-Royals series, and I think that honestly, there's not a better series to watch. We'll talk about other games obviously when we get to the picks later on in the show, but not as many matchups as I'm seeing for the middle of this week are really that much fun to watch. So it's a lot of good teams that are going to be beating up on bad teams, I think. But we'll see. When we get to Tuesday, obviously we'll have a bit more games and it'll be a little bit more fun to watch. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Yankees Royals is going to be by far the most entertaining series coming up this week. We'll see about the weekend when we get there. Obviously, we'll do series of the weekend. But now let's get into some award talk because we're obviously a couple months removed from finding out who are going to win these awards. But that doesn't mean we can't start talking about who's going to actually run away with it or who's going to just walk away with the award by a little bit. Most of these are honestly have already been won, which is why I kind of wanted to talk about it today and just reflect on it now when there's not too much news otherwise. Because, I mean, a month from now, I don't think they're going to really lose the award here. But there are some MVP races going on. There are some players in the conversation who won't win that I just kind of want to reflect on because they've had such a good season. And then we'll look at, obviously, the Cy Young pitchers who have kind of locked it down by now. And then the Rookie of the Year picks who some are honestly not decided yet. So we'll talk about that. And then that should bring us right into our picks for the day. So pretty much we're just going to go right into the AL MVP race. And I really wanted to do this because I've seen people do this on Twitter before. Shout out StatHead for giving me these graphics, but these are a lot of fun to actually go ahead and do. And we're obviously going to be talking about Bobby Witt Jr. and Aaron Judge. So I'm going to throw on their 2024 season stats side by side to compare them. And we can kind of see who really deserves the MVP here. And it's obvious. I mean, I think everybody who, even Royals fans can admit that Aaron Judge deserves this MVP over Bobby Witt Jr. But that's not to take anything away from Bobby Witt Jr. Jeff Passan actually wrote a great article about just kind of appreciating how good both of these players are playing this season and how chaotic of a year it's been, to have these guys putting up this type of production is pretty unreal, especially when I feel like a lot of people have been talking about how bad offense in baseball has gotten nowadays. To have these guys who are kind of on two opposite ends of the spectrum, Judge being the best power hitter of our generation, and then Witt being, maybe the toolsiest player we've ever seen in modern day baseball. Just it's so much fun to see them putting up different kinds of production that are so incredibly valuable to their teams. I think Judge way more valuable to the Yankees than Witt is to the Royals. That's not saying Witt's not valuable to the Royals. I just think the Yankees sink to such a low point in the AL East without Aaron Judge that I think the Royals could actually win some games in the Central without Bobby Witt. But obviously, 9 WAR for each of them is unreal. 9.6 for Judge. That's just unreal. Obviously, 2 players who are undoubtedly the most valuable in the league. I honestly don't even know if the Royals would take games in the Central without Bobby Witt. That's just how good he is. But I still think Judge is a little more valuable to the Yankees. Definitely wins this award this year. You look at not just the WAR, but the 51 to 30 home runs, which obviously Witt's not going to touch. But even the stolen bases, I mean, only 20 less stolen bases than Bobby Witt really surprised me when looking at that. Judge is never someone I think of to be anyone stealing bases. I personally thought that number would be just around 5, but 8 stolen bases compared to 28 is really not that bad if you're Aaron Judge. Obviously, he clears on base percentage. The slug, he clears it too, but still 600 slug there for Bobby Witt Jr., 603. That looks really good there. And then obviously Judge clears OPS and OPS plus, but Witt's numbers there are still unreal. I wouldn't be surprised if Bobby Witt turns around and wins this award next year and puts up even better numbers after this. And I wouldn't be surprised if these two are in the conversation for a couple more MVPs in their careers in the future. I think this is a debate that we're going to be going back and forth for a couple more seasons. And we'll be throwing more people in there like Gunnar Henderson and probably a bunch of other more players. But it's been a lot of fun to watch these two play this season. And I think just, despite Judge slumping recently, I still think that hasn't made Bobby Witt overtake him in the MVP voting or just in the odds to win MVP at all. Judge is still a wide favorite. So really fun to watch both of these guys play, obviously, and we should just appreciate the product they put on the field, especially that it's going to be on one field tonight. But I think it's kind of just dumb to say that Bobby Witt deserves the MVP. Any other year, I think he would, but this is just another historic season for Aaron Judge, and I think it's only right that you at least acknowledge the fact that he is going to be winning that award. But the NL MVP race, I thought it was a little bit more of a race, but that's not really the way other people see it. I think you guys could probably guess who one of the players is, and who, another one may not be too, I guess, guessable, but you obviously know Shohei Ohtani is one of them. But the other pick it has been a player who's just been so solid all around this season, who got snubbed from the All-Star game, and is a guy who, if he wasn't on this team, would not be anywhere near contention for the playoffs, and that is the Mets shortstop Francisco Lindor. And the two have really, it's not even close. I mean, you look at the stats, Shohei clears everything besides games played and just plate appearances had, which aren't even that far off if you're Shohei Ohtani. But that doesn't take anything away from what Lindor has been able to do this year. 6.3 WAR is incredible for him. 158 hits, 30 home runs, 84 RBIs, and 26 stolen bases. He'll be a 30-30 guy this year with 16 outs above average at shortstop, which is arguably the best in the entire league. He's in the 99th percentile per Baseball Savant, and you could argue that right now Lindor is the best shortstop right now in baseball. Obviously, I think Bobby Witt Jr. is, but in the National League, I think it's stupid not to say Francisco Lindor is not the best shortstop in that National League. He's been unreal. 492 slug, a 339 on base percentage, that 832 OPS, and then a great OPS plus there as well. But Shohei Ohtani in a league of his own in the National League there, with 162 hits, 46 home runs, 46 stolen bases on 101 RBIs, a 291, 374, 618 slash line to total out an OPS of nearly 1,000 and then an OPS plus of 177. So he's been well above league average, and he has been well above what great players in the league hit as well. So he's just in a league of his own there. And I think Shohei's OPS plus should just tell you how good Judge has been this year, to have an OPS plus over 200. To kind of, and I haven't said this in a while, so sometimes I forget that it's not a very, I guess, just commonly used term, but the average league average OPS plus would be around 100. So you're just kind of thinking Judge is hitting over 100 points higher than league average, which is pretty crazy to think about. But that's really just the benefit of using OPS plus and these other weird advanced stats that we talk about every single week. But the MVP races have been awesome. While they've been kind of ran away with at this point, the players who are coming up short are having great years as well. And I think we really have to just acknowledge them because they've been so much fun to watch. And it's also not really names that we've seen in a while or ever before. So I think that it's been a lot of fun this season. It's I've said this a couple times already on the show, but it's been so chaotic. And I feel like that's just what we needed with baseball. I mean, it's been such a fun year to follow and to see these guys compete for these awards. It's cool, and I hope that we see more of a diverse group of guys, going for these awards, because I love seeing Lindor and Shohei one year, Acuna another year. It's really cool to see. So, moving on to the Rookie of the Year here before we talk about the Cy Young. We're going to go into AL Rookie of the Year first, who is right now between Baltimore Orioles' Colton Cowser and New York Yankees catcher Austin Wells. And this was a really cool one to look at because I honestly didn't know how similar these two were putting, up numbers production-wise. Both 2.2, 2.6 WAR, so they're around the same WAR. Obviously, Colton Cowser has played more games because Austin Wells has kind of been in that catching tandem with Jose Trevino. Plate appearances, obviously, Cowser is going to clear him there, and hits, obviously, he's going to clear him there if he's been in more games. Home runs, not many more than Austin Wells. 62 RBIs, 8 stolen bases. Austin Wells has put up similar production, but in less games. So I just feel like Colton Cowser is going to take it. Not necessarily because I think he's had a better season. I think Austin Wells has by far had one of the best rookie seasons we've seen out of a catcher in so long. But it's just the amount of games played compared to what Colton Cowser has played. I personally don't believe a 242 batting average and an OPS of 759 should win you the Rookie of the Year. But then I would be having to say the same thing about Austin Wells. So it's just been a bit of a down, I guess, season Rookie of the Year offensively wise. I think Colton Cowser will win it just because he had more games played under his belt. If Wells goes on like a tear and hits 500 the rest of the season, I could see him taking it. But I think Colton Cowser is probably going to take this one with that 120 OPS plus and a slug that is, not much better, but a little bit better there. And then obviously the hitting stats are slightly skewed towards Colton Cowser's side, as you see there. But again, that's really just because he's played more games. So I think that's kind of just how the MLB is gonna decide to look at that award there. But yeah, a little bit more of an underwhelming, I feel like, AL Rookie of the Year than last year because, Carroll and Henderson were really cool to see win the award, and those were my two picks before. So obviously I was enjoying that. But yeah, can't always have the best Rookie of the Year races. I thought Luis Gil would be in the conversation still. Unfortunately, not happening. But now we get to talk about NL Rookie of the Year, who a lot of people thought was going to go to Paul Skeens. But as of right now, the minus 1,000 favorite is Padres, Jackson Merrill, who's just been absolutely unreal this season. As you can see, his stats there, over 500 plate appearances and 497 at-bats, 72 runs scored, 144 hits, almost 25 home runs and 20 stolen bases, near 300 batting average, a 322 on base, and a near 500 slug. He has been unbelievably good this season. He's just honestly has just turned a Padres team that has had a lot of question marks into a real contending team. He brings fire to this team. He brings energy. He brings passion to the game, versatility. speed, everything you want in a baseball player Jackson Merrill brings. And I really just think his consistency is ultimately what led to him running away with this award. Paul Skeens, he just doesn't play enough to get this honor over him, unfortunately. But I'm sure we'll see Paul Skeens get his fair share of Cy Youngs in the future. So I think the two of them will be fine, kind of with Jackson Merrill winning this Rookie of the Year. But an incredible second half for Merrill just propelled him to those minus 1,000 consensus odds. A 313, 341, 613 slash line, and a 954 OPS with 10 home runs from post All-Star break stats. Those are just absolutely incredible. Merrill really just deserves this award. He's been just so good the entire season and has really just been one of the main reasons why this Padres team has been competitive all year, which is crazy to think about at 21 years old. But one of the most fun players to watch in the league right now. And I just hope he keeps up this production for years to come, because he is truly something special to watch. But moving on to the NL Cy Young winner, and that will most likely be Chris Sale. Sale has just really dialed it up to another level this season, as you can see, with a 2.38 ERA in 27 games started, 166.2 innings pitched, and then 213 strikeouts with a 1.00 whip. He has been unreal, and it's really just at age 35, it's been unreal to see. The chase rate numbers, the whiff rate numbers, the K rate numbers, they're amazing, but then the control's still good. And at 35, he's limiting hard hit baseballs. It's somebody who's in his early 20s. It's nuts to see a guy like Chris Sale, who one would have thought was by far out of his prime by now, being in the 95th percentile for xERA and above the 90th percentile for average exit velocity. It's really cool to see the 35-year-old, like I keep mentioning, because of how just insane that is. He's putting up this production at that age, is 16-3 with that 2.38 ERA. So again, for all you advanced stat heads out there, that is an ERA plus of 175, and he leads the entire MLB currently. So he leads the entire MLB in multiple stats this season. He leads in strikeouts. He leads in win-loss percentage, ERA, ERA plus, FIP. I mean, strikeouts per 9 at 11.4, home runs per 9 at 0.4. I mean, yeah, he deserves a Cy Young. Everything he's been doing has just been pretty much perfect. So you can't really ask for much more if you are a Braves fan out of Chris Sale. You can ask much more out of the team, but Chris Sale's really kept you in it. So shout out the lefties, because Tariq Skubal is going to be winning the AL Cy Young. That'll be interesting. I'm sure somebody will post something about that, but maybe I'll take a look and see when the last time two lefties won the Cy Young Award. I'm sure that's like a quick Wikipedia search away, so I'll probably just search that up real quick or something after the show. But yeah, Tariq Skubal, he's been nuts this year, just like Chris Sale. He's been unbelievable. Similar ERA there, 2.53, and 28 games started. So around the same time, he's got a little bit more innings under his belt and slightly less strikeouts, but he still leads the American League. He leads the American League in ERA plus at 164, and also leads in FIP at 2.54. So the All-Star this season, he leads the entire MLB in wins, tied with Chris Sale, obviously, but leads the AL in ERA and win-loss percentage as well. He's 16-4, so Chris Sale just has a little bit of an edge on him there, but he's been unreal as well this season. Really just very dominant in all regards of the game, a 10.8 strikeout per 9, a 0.7 home run per 9. He's not a pitcher you want to face in the postseason, which is why we talk about the Tigers so much, making the postseason, not only this year, but the years beyond from now, because school is going to be a big threat during that time. But now we're going to be talking about our picks for today, as we kind of got through all the awards here. But I think all of these guys rightfully deserve these awards. Let me know if you're a Bobby Witt truther, if you think someone else is going to come in and win a Cy Young. I would love to hear the opinions, because I mean, as far as the sports book they think that this is like a done deal. So Let's move into the bets for today because I've got a bunch. We're trying something new, a little bit of a different style of picks today. Usually I would pick like either just straight, game result bets or prop bets or, I would normally pick one of the two or do like three of each in just one article. Today for this, I guess just, smaller slate on a Monday, we've got two just normal game picks, and then we've got one plus odds prop that I really like today, and that prop I also think you could move around, get an alt line for, and really get some good value out of that. So we're going to talk about that. I've got a 3-leg hit parlay for the Royals Yankees game tonight that I think is actually looking pretty good, and I think is a decent play for you guys. And then a home run of the day pick, which is obviously, I say take with a grain of salt. Just sprinkle it. Don't do anything crazy with the home run pick. We've been pretty cold on those. But yeah, so let's just get right into these picks because like you've obviously just heard, I got a bunch of them. But the first game today, we're going to be looking at Pittsburgh versus Miami. Paul Skeens against a Miami team that hasn't seen him, I think, is going to be really scary for him. So I like Pirates -1.5 today. It's not plus odds, so I like it kind of even more. Skeens just should be able to bounce back kind of from a little bit of I don't want to say a struggle, because I mean, even when he struggles, he still goes like 5 innings pitched, but he has gone like 5 innings pitched in his last 2 starts. So facing a weak Marlins lineup most likely will be a game for him to step up. I think that taking his over 7.5 strikeouts, I saw the line was at 6.5, but I think teasing it up to 7.5, even 9.5 is a good play. It's plus 124 on FanDuel to do over 7.5 right now, or it was a couple hours ago. So I assume it's around the same amount right now. But as far as I think, over 9.5 was like plus 400 something. So great value there. That's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to find value at this point in the season. And with Skeens, who has been a little bit on the down end lately in terms of his numbers from the beginning of the season, I think that's a solid bit of value there to go plus 400 when he hasn't really had a big game like that in a while. And I think he's really due to do it against a pretty poor Marlins team. So let's get into the 3-leg hit parlay now. Like I said, all hit props. This is Royals versus Yankees. It's a same game parlay that's going to be plus 190. That was Hard Rock Bet. It may be different on your sports book that you choose to use, but obviously 3-leg parlay, it will be plus odds. It will make you some money. And we're going Salvador Perez to get a hit, Gleyber Torres to get a hit, and Aaron Judge to get a hit. Sounds pretty straightforward and pretty simple, and that's exactly what I'm hoping. We ran a little Yankee parlay. I think that was in the series against the Nationals, I want to say. No, Rangers game where they played Jack Leiter, and that one actually hit in like the 4th inning. So I'm hoping this one is kind of similar, but who knows? Maybe the pitchers just duel today and we're screwed. But I didn't just throw these 2 together or these 3 together to just throw them together. These guys have good numbers against the pitchers they're facing tonight. Judge, he's got a 400 batting average against Brady Singer with no extra base hits. And while he's slumping, I think that just taking him to get a hit straight up is probably the best play, rather than a total base play that will most likely be over 1.5 total bases, or a hits, run, and RBI play that will be similar. I think it's really just safe to take a guy to kind of break the slump today and to get just a single at least against a guy that he doesn't really have a great history of getting extra base hits against. So I like Judge there. I think he'll break out of the slump at Yankee Stadium today. Gleyber Torres has a 333 batting average against Singer, plus is right now kind of the best hitter in the lineup. Like I said, hit 375 last week, so I think he will be due for another hit as well. And then in 23 at-bats against Carlos Rodon on the other end, when we look at the Kansas City Royals, Salvador Perez, 435 batting average with 10 hits. So those are the 3 picks for that. I think those are honestly pretty solid bets there. You could throw in Juan Soto. He's got a 400 batting average against Brady Singer as well, and then that makes it a 4-leg parlay, and I believe gets the odds up to like plus 230 or something. But I personally thought to just kind of leave it at 3. Don't try and get too crazy with a 4-leg, because obviously parlays are a lot less likely to actually hit than just a straight bet, which is why I normally don't do any parlays. But, we were looking for value on same game parlays with the Dolphins game yesterday. If you saw, me and Drew were there. I was trying to find some value with some Tyreek Hill props. So I thought I had some fun doing that. So I thought maybe, for the rest of the MLB season, we'd throw out some hit props or pitching parlays or something we could do to just kind of make, sports baseball betting a little more fun and, maybe find some more value. So, that's name of the game, just finding value. But I really like that 3-leg parlay. Personally, I don't think it's too crazy, but if these pitchers do end up dueling, not going to look good. But I think these are actually two guys who could go out there and give up some hits tonight against two teams that really want to take either a bigger division lead or just cut the division deficit a little more. I think these teams are going to be looking to hit tonight. So moving on to my second game pick of the day, and it is the Blue Jays to take a W today against the New York Mets, and it was plus 114 consensus odds last time I looked on Action Sports Network. Chris Bassett, has limited New York Mets hitters to a 177 batting average against him with a 489 OPS. And it's Paul Blackburn's first start coming off the IL, and his ERA on the road is just awful. It's over 6. And the Mets, while they've won 9 of their last 10, I think they drop one here. Every team's got to lose at some point. And I think against a pitcher who's just in 79 at-bats, historically has been pretty solid against you, it's going to be pretty tough. So I don't necessarily love riding with Chris Bassett and the Blue Jays, but I am actually thinking that, every team obviously has to lose at some point. The Mets have been hot that I think they're honestly due for a loss. And, the Blue Jays could do it today with how good Bassett's been against the Mets in his career. I hope he could turn it on. But last pick we've got today is Matt Olson to hit a home run against Nick Martinez and the Cincinnati Reds. It's plus 350 as far as I saw consensus odds. I believe that was FanDuel odds as well. 2 home runs over his last 10 at-bats against Nick Martinez. Matt Olson hasn't been great this season. And, looking at what he's done recently, his last 5 games have not been very good, as he's gotten only 3 hits across those last 5 games. Those only scored 2 runs and has not hit a home run in any of those 5 games. So I think he's pretty due personally. He's got great numbers against Martinez. So I think if you're sprinkling a home run, that could be a good idea. I think the Braves now know kind of how crucial each game is to their season now. And hopefully guys like Matt Olson, a guy who I predicted to win the NL MVP this year, will step up and take more of a role. But those are all my picks for today, and that is ultimately all we've got for this Monday edition of Back to the Dugout. Go watch the Royals and Yankees this week. That should be a really fun series to watch. Both of those teams, they need wins, and I think those games are going to be having that postseason atmosphere in the Bronx. Other than that, the Dodgers have been red hot. Go watch them play some baseball. Go watch these award candidates and these future award winners that I was talking about. Go watch them play because they're putting together something special. But other than that, I mean, these bets that I talked about just now, I'll have them out in written form probably pretty shortly. But that's all I got for you guys today. I'll be back Thursday to talk more baseball, to recap the week a little bit, and we'll get you guys ready for the weekend in baseball. But that's all I got for you guys today. Go watch the series of the week and go take some of the picks that I gave y'all today. But yeah, again, watch all the programming that we have here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network, New Era Prep Nightly, the La Stella Report, and go tune into my guy Drew Shula's coverage of the Miami Dolphins. That was great stuff. From the last second win against the Jaguars, that was great stuff there. We were on the scene there, and that was a lot of fun to be able to get some coverage there. So go tune into that because that's some great stuff as well. Really just trying to round out your sports coverage here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. But as far as my stuff goes, I got nothing left for you guys today here on this Monday edition of Back to the Dugout. I will see you all on Thursday, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.